Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I don't know why. It's so funny. And like, I've been rehearsing this like for like 15 minutes now. And every time I'm about to say breaking down the breakdown, I have this urge to be like, welcome back to So You Think You Can Dance. And I don't know why. I haven't watched So You Think You Can Dance since like the early 2010s. So it makes no fucking sense to me. But welcome, guys. This is Steven Diego. This is another episode of Breaking Down the Breakdown. Today, every day I always say this. Every day is a special day because I always have special guests here, except for days when I don't have guests. So I guess I'm not that special. But this person I've known for I wouldn't say a very long time, but quite a long time. Actually, it feels like a long time because we've known each other online for years. And that shit never used to happen back in the day. Back in the day, you would know someone online for like a few months and then they're like either weird, dead, or you meet them in person. So it's really nice that you're neither of those three. Well, it sucks that I can't meet you in person yet, but we have our friend Vaz with us, coming all the way from Greece. Woo! Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
I just want to make sure, towards the end, you sounded a little robotic,
No.
unfortunately.
No. Really? That's okay.
You sounded like that now, too.
But can you understand what I'm saying?
I can. I'm just making sure it's not fucking up with your audio.
It's okay. Don't worry, because I have another thing to record my audio.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I have learned my lesson, okay? I got my bases covered.
What a wonderful way to start an episode.
It's literally like, let me call you out on your inadequacies of being a host and your shitty tech. All right.
Anything. You said you know what you're doing, so you called me bluff.
You know what? It's okay because, my words today are not really going to be as important as yours because this whole episode is going to be talking about communication. And it is something that Vaz decided to bring to my attention, which is actually so true. It is so important. It is such an integral part of everyone's lives, yet I have yet to touch up on it. But you know what? Who better to talk to about this than you? You and I communicate in such a unique way. Yes, like we
Wow.
have weird noises.
That's a unique way. We're not like other people. Oh my god.
No, but I feel like, it's kind of it's, how do I explain it? It's, we get each other, like we have very different forms of communication, yet we get each other. And I think that's kind of why our friendship works so well. But before we dive into this, I want you to introduce yourself. I want everybody to get to know who you are. Who are you?
Oh my god, who am I? Great question. No one knows. My name is Vaz. I'm known online as Shape, which was an issue. I'm going to introduce myself originally. We talked about it. I don't use my name very often, that's why. I am from Greece. I am a postgraduate student at the moment. I'm studying history and philosophy of science and technology. Nothing knows what that is. It's perfectly fine.
It sounds smart. That's all that matters.
It sounds smart, exactly.
Yeah.
Sounds being the key word. And I decided to talk about communication because it's something that I'm interested in, like most people, but I suck at it.
Okay, but to be able to admit that you're not very good at communication, I think it's the first step towards greatness when it comes to being a great communicator, because there are a lot of people, and I know you've experienced this with certain individuals in your life, where you can't even communicate with them.
Yes, it's very, very, very true. And, and it's not just an online thing, because, you meet people online, you interact in certain situations. It's more often for you, especially because you stream. So you've had those kind of interactions where it's
Yeah.
difficult to communicate with someone, even if you're talking to someone, but communicating
It
seems to
is.
be an issue.
Yeah.
But even in real life, apparently, I will not say perfectly communicating because perfectly sounds a little rough, but I will say properly
Okay. Yes.
communicating concepts, ideas, feelings
Yeah.
in certain situations seems to be pretty hard.
And now that you touched upon that, I actually want to segue into that because what do you think is one of the, I don't want to say the biggest because we it differs from each individual, but
Mhm.
personally, like for you, right? What do you find is usually the cause of a breakdown in communication between people?
That's a great question. Philosophically speaking, no, it is actually a thing because when most of us talk, um, have this a priori thought that when we use certain words, when we
Yeah.
speak about certain things, no matter what that is,
Hmm.
it gets even more difficult when you approach, um, what's the word, when you approach more abstract subjects.
Right.
But we tend to think that when we use a word, other people use that word in a similar way
Hmm.
or have the very same meaning that we do. And obviously, when someone uses some words or puts them in a context that we are like, I don't really agree with that, or I
Right.
take offense to what you said.
That's very interesting.
Yes, that's because we put it out there. We don't take into consideration that this is our own personal cookie cutter of how we
Uh-huh.
organize the
Uh-huh.
world, essentially.
Right.
And I did say words, but I think most often that not is the context that
Hmm.
those words are used because it makes it
I
even more complicated.
I do agree. And um it's funny because a lot of things get lost in translation through text, right?
Exactly.
And it is one of the biggest kind of like reasons as to why for me I love sending voice or like video messages. Like a lot of people are like, wow, he's so old fashioned, like who does that? But for me, it truly is because I don't want my words to be taken out of context in a sense that yes, it will read and it should read how it's being written, but it shouldn't be read in terms of how you are reading it because you
Exactly.
are completely translating it into something else that wasn't meant for that.
Mhm.
So I agree with that. That is actually so true. And a lot of people that I've come across, they don't seem to get that. Like I've tried to explain to them before, like, hey, this is why I do what I do. This is why I send these things, right? And I would still kind of like when they're like, oh no, it's okay. I know you. Like I know how you are. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I'll text them something. And then I get this response of like, okay, like, did I just do something wrong? And it's like, well, I thought you got me. So I guess I have to keep talking to you this way.
Mhm.
No, but I totally get that.
And that's how one issue of communication starts. But I think it tangles with a second part in which,
Hmm.
you said what you said, you meant it how you meant it, but I may have interpreted it a different way. And it happens. It's a very usual thing because, like I
Right.
said, different people use certain words in a different way or interpret things in this situation because, you send something as a joke to someone, and at the time they're reading it, they're frustrated about something. They're gonna read it and they're gonna be like, okay, he's making fun of me. I'm angry right now.
Right. See,
Um, and they get trapped in this situation or feeling like this, and that's where
Hmm.
the second issue of communication arises, because I'm not gonna text you or message you or send you a voicemail like old people do, like you. And
Ow!
sorry,
In the
it was
middle of the
right there.
show.
It was right there. You don't know how I meant it.
You said it.
Prove it.
You could have just written it on paper and put it up on the screen. Then I would have been like, "Oh, I don't know how to read that."
True, because I could have written it in Greek.
Right.
Yeah, that's where the second issue of communication arises, because I'm not gonna try to talk to you, and I'm not gonna say go into an elaborate conversation of breaking down what you just said and let's
Right.
talk about this in my
Right.
active space. But I'm not even gonna send a, oh, how did you mean that?
Yeah.
Very simple as that, I'm just gonna be mad at you.
Right.
You're not gonna hear from me for a very long
Right.
time after I have gotten accustomed to not gotten accustomed, but after I have fully interpreted the situation as something I should be mad about this.
Yes. And that actually was the next thing I wanted to talk about. I wanted to throw in where for me, I actually believe that one of the biggest factors in breakdowns of communication is emotions. And it's something that for people who can't communicate properly, they will never be able to convey how they truly feel and the message that they're trying to send out. It gets lost in this broken telephone filter, courtesy of emotions and depending on how you feel, right? And I think you and I spoke about this before, and I do want to touch upon this because I want to see what you think about it. But I feel that this is where projection actually starts to show. When one starts projecting their own kind of like emotions towards things, right? Like have you experienced like some form of breakdown like that?
Yes, thank you. I gave him a few topics before, and he puts it in the conversation so seamlessly. It's honestly admirable. I want to say, first of all,
I love how you
that's
called that out.
very
Shit.
provocative. I am showcasing what a great host you are. Just seamlessly putting, because if I didn't know I wrote them down, I'll be like, wow, did he come out with that on the spot? That's
Well, thank you.
incredible. No,
You-
that's talent. That's a proper talent. That's proper communication. Um, but
I'm
yeah,
dead.
no, jokes aside, I do agree with what you said about emotions, because
Mm,
we are emotional people in more than one way. Not emotional people, we are emotional beings in more than one
right.
way. You know, although we do tend to separate brain and heart, neurologically
Yes.
speaking,
Yes.
smart talk. I don't think that it's that easy to differentiate. Thoughts
Mhm.
are connected to emotions, emotions are connected to thought. It's very
Right.
hard to separate the two. I'm just saying that not to sound like a smart ass. I don't want emotions to get the bad rap out of this, because it's, oh, we can't communicate it because of certain emotions. That's the burden here. If we didn't have emotions, things would be so much simpler. Not the case. Um, because, and I'm gonna try to tie it to projection, because we tend to feel some kind of way about certain things, either because of ideals that we have,
Right.
thoughts that we have about things, uh, or because of our pasts and certain situations triggering past trauma,
Right.
many, many ways.
Ooh,
Um,
that feels a little personal
yeah,
there.
it is a little personal, because we've talked about this out
No, of course.
of stream and the podcast.
And you know what, for me, like I mean, if you're comfortable talking about things, please do so, right? Like I don't want you to feel like you have to throw in like a bone just because like, oh,
Yeah,
this bitch like just started talking about this. Now I'm on the fucking spot and I got to do this. But I do kind of before we like segue into that, I do want to say like, and it's not so much like smart talk when you said that, because I can simplify it in a sense that for a lot of people, I know I am a victim of this. Maybe you have been too. And for those of you listening right now, I know at least once in your life you have sat there and you've told yourself, you know what? I'm going to think with my head and not with my heart. And you start making decisions because you actually think you're thinking with your head, but truly, it is what's in your heart that's allowing you to enact that way. And then you ask yourself, why did things still break down? Was this not the right decision? And you kind of look back in that moment and you realize those thoughts were actually fueled by how you felt in the moment, because otherwise you would have done things differently. And I think for me that is actually such an important thing to look at, especially when we're communicating, because it's not just us in this situation now, and anything that we say or do does affect the other person. And so I just kind of wanted to like bring that to, you know, like just kind of like meld the two together, because I know some people, when you said it, it sounded so sophisticated. It sounded so like damn, he is an intellectual. So this is me dumbing it down for y'all, okay? Like it's not really stupid. It's not being dumb, but it is in its rawest form. That's what Sheep was trying to say. It's essentially that. You know, like and to this day, like it's hard to be able to differentiate between your heart and your mind. Like, how do you even, right?
yeah, and you never do. Even when even after taking a few days before, responding to someone
Yes.
that made something to annoy you or something similar to infuriate you, you're still combining thoughts and feelings because, at that moment you're more calm. It allows for your thoughts to work a little more organically. Because,
Right.
when you're mad, you actually tend to make many, what's the word? Some mind jumps, let's call it like that. You make
Okay.
some associations where things might not be.
Ah,
And
yes.
yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
No, I completely, yeah. And you
There
just
is a
kind
word
of,
for that, but I'm not that smart to remember the word now.
I'm like trying. I'm like grasping at the straws here. Like, wait, there is a perfect term for what you just
There is a
said.
perfect term, thank you. But we're not gonna find it out.
You're gaslighting yourself. No, get it. No. But with that being said, like kind of like and we spoke about this because it sounds like a lot of these things that we are alluding to right now can be attributed to keeping things in. And sometimes when we do that, like things eventually just kind of come out and it's almost out of our control. Like we kind of take on the responsibility to say, yeah, you know what, this is actually how I felt, so I'm gonna go say it. But the way and the delivery in that we say it, it's almost as if we can't control it, because it's just kind of like, oh, it's been triggered. Like, this is how I've been feeling for so long. Bam, here you fucking go, word vomit,
And
And
sometimes, the person who triggers those feelings gets a full accumulation of all those little droplets that have been gobbling up. So,
yes, yes.
it's your opportunity to burst. You're like, I can't do this anymore. Here you go. Trauma dump, trauma dump, trauma dump.
So then I do have to ask, right? Like, I know you probably be in situations like that. Like, how do you conduct yourself afterwards, knowing that, like maybe on your end or on their end, right? I want to hear both sides of it. Like, how are you able to essentially keep the conversation going, to keep it moving, to acknowledge what just happened? Or is it a complete stop? Like, okay, well, I fucked that shit up, or they fucked that shit up. I'm never talking to that person ever again. Like, how do you function, and how do you feel in that moment?
I actually have two situations in
Okay,
that
I love
way.
this.
One ending
Mhm.
up on a more positive note, one on a more negative one.
Okay.
I'm gonna start with the negative because I think ending up
Yeah,
with
positives
positive.
is always nice to end with.
It's the older one, so it's a little easier to talk about because
Okay.
um, a little something happened. I don't know if everyone has heard called the quarantine, and
What's that?
right, 2 years before nothing happened. It's 2020. Um, and it wasn't easy for a lot of people. It wasn't easy for me.
Right.
The only reason I look presentable right now is because I knew I was going to be on camera. Um, but it was a little rough on my mental health because
Right.
I am an introvert, but there are moments that, I've had a little more alone time than what I
Yeah.
thought.
Than what you actually wanted to.
And yeah, especially towards the middle of quarantine, I think it affected me the most because I and towards the end, I think it was a period of time that I'm not going to self-diagnose myself because I hate when people do that. I will say that for me, it was the closest I have ever felt to feelings of depression.
Oh, okay.
Because it was really, I had no energy all the time. I was very stressed with school.
Hmm.
I did not see any of my friends. I was home 24/7. I barely showered because I didn't even have the energy to do that.
Right.
I didn't speak to anyone, and I lived in a house with four people. I didn't speak to anyone.
Oh my goodness.
Um, and it sounds a little more tragic than what it should. But during that time, especially because I didn't have any energy, it's not like there weren't people around that I wasn't messaging some people.
Hmm.
And I had this very good friend. We knew each other since I want to say high school.
Okay.
We went to different high schools, but we went in the same artistic program in the community center. That's how we met and we
Okay.
became friends. And, we started hanging out more. Um, he asked me a few times to go out, and, I told him I didn't delve into how I was feeling at the time because I wasn't necessarily as safe, but it was not something I wanted to share with anyone.
No, for sure.
So, I just told him that I'm not feeling very well right now and I need some
Right.
personal space and maybe another time. And, the weeks kept passing by. I was in my own bubble. And he asked me to hang out again. And this time I sent him a longer message, still telling him that I want to a little more elaborate, but still not talking about the actual situation.
Right.
Um, Telling him that I still need more personal space, that it's not like I hate him, I'm not in a state to communicate right
No,
now.
for sure.
And a few more weeks passed by, and he asked me to hang out because he was going to leave for Holland. He was in his last year in his postgraduate studies,
Okay.
and if it went well, he would go to Holland. He did go to Holland, by the way.
Okay. Good
He'll
for
never
him.
watch this, but I am happy for him.
Okay.
And alluding towards the end of the story.
Oh
Uh,
boy.
and I was like, you know what? He's leaving. I should gather myself a little bit to, even for a few hours to hang out
Right.
properly. And a few hours before I respond, he sent me a very long message about how I've made him extremely unhappy, how I've been uncaring towards his feelings, that he has asked me to hang out for so many times, and that I'm an asshole for, striking him off. Because, essentially what most people say, if you don't want to hang out with me, just tell me so, so I don't
Right.
like, so I feel like less, so I feel like less of an idiot. Um, and I did message him back that I'm like, I was actually going to message you to hang out. I delved a little more into my psyche and how I've not been feeling the best.
Right.
And that it wasn't that I wasn't in the mood, it was just that I wasn't in a situation to communicate.
Right.
It was not like I was avoiding him specifically, I was avoiding the world
Right. You were in a space in which you were not able to do those things.
wonderfully, but I did not communicate.
Right.
I did ask, I did say sorry for not being able to communicate properly.
Hmm.
And I did tell him that those messages, though, that kept coming, did put me in a difficult position where I was feeling more stressed with this whole situation. But he didn't know how I was feeling, so, it's understandable. And, you know, um, he wasn't very happy with my answer. Um, he told me that I, I am being over dramatic and I'm pulling all this out of my ass to look like less of an asshole than I am, and to justify to myself why I was being a jerk. And I didn't respond after that because it felt like a very final message.
Right.
Um, I did feel pretty bad, but I can tell that I don't understand where he was coming from
Right.
because, like I said, I didn't communicate my situation very well as I should have, and
Right.
how serious I was. So I understand when I started explaining a little bit more towards the end, it was a little too late because he had already formed his narrative of how he was feeling, which, and I understand that it's not fair. It's not only bad communication on my part, it's, I guess, an issue on his part as well for, I get, because, I think a lot of people do that, but, they don't communicate that they have been feeling this type of way
Right.
if they feel ignored, or um, they feel annoyed at this situation, and you end up doing it when you have formed the full narrative that the other person doesn't like you,
Right.
doesn't want to hang out with you. He's just been avoiding you to not be a jerk, and he's trying to cut you off essentially. And you're not gonna take that. At least
Yeah.
tell me that you don't want to hang out, and you end up blowing up on them.
I
And
I kind of just want to interject quickly. Um, I do notice we're running out of time, but
oh,
we're gonna wrap
right,
this up.
we did.
But right, it's weird. It's funny. It's fast. But I do just kind of want to throw it in there, right? And it's something for you to think about. And I do want to know, like I guess my first question is, at any moment when you explained that you were like not really well, at any point in any time that he asked you to come out, did he ask how you were actually doing?
No.
There you go. Okay? At any point when he started feeling really agitated or really, felt like, oh, great, like, you know what, like, you're just, like, you made me really unhappy. At any point, did he even ask you, what is it? Like, what was wrong? Like, why didn't you want to see him? Or was it just all of a sudden started assuming the worst in you?
Yeah, because, when the topic came up, it was, like I said, it was an already made narrative. He
Right.
believed that he just didn't want to hang out anymore.
Right.
But
On his own, right? Like,
yeah,
there's no communication,
unfortunately, yeah.
which is right. Because, and I'm only saying this because, like, I notice in how you're telling the story, and obviously I notice in how like, your emotions are obviously showing right now, and it's fair, right? Like, it's where, like, nowhere. But I think for me, it was very important to address that and to ask you that question, because while, yes, you could have communicated it to him that a little bit more in depth as to what you were going through, he also could have shown a bit of empathy and compassion into wondering why his friend, right? If he is that close to you, for him to be this upset, it means you and him were close, in some way. Like, you can't be this upset over somebody that you just met online. Nothing like that, My thing is this. That is something that for him, I feel that he also needs to work on, in a sense that you were going through something at the time. Yes, and that's fine. Now that you're acknowledging it, like, to be honest, it's not like I'm not saying you can use it as an excuse. It's not about that. And it's not what you're saying either, right? You're sitting here and you're telling us, hey, you know what? I could have done this too. But what it sounds like right now is you are taking on all that blame. And it's not fair to yourself.
Yeah, and this is why I start telling towards the end that, I did this, but also on his part. But you
Yeah.
put it a lot better, I guess. Yeah. It's, that's why to this day, I am not mad at him because I know that it was a communication issue.
Right.
He was upset and he didn't communicate that. I was feeling like crap and I did not communicate that.
Right.
And, you want to say that, from my point of view at least, that there was a bad guy in the situation, but I can, because, you can, from my point of view, once again, you can turn around and call him inconsiderate or whatever, but, it's not fair to him.
Right.
And it's also not fair to me.
No, for sure. I get it. I get it.
I mean, that's the unfortunate part, but, I hope he's thriving out there. I want to end this story with that. I hope he's thriving because he was a good guy, but, things happen, unfortunately. And
No, for sure.
sometimes,
Sometimes.
you just roll with the punches.
Right. And sometimes people are placed in your life for a reason, right? And I think you are both placing each other's lives to better understand yourselves.
True.
Like, I bet you there isn't a moment right now for him where he finally realized that maybe he should have reached out instead of let's hang out, which is a very selfish thing. But for him at the time, it wasn't, because it's him offering his time with you. But I'm sure somewhere down the road, if he hasn't yet, he probably realized, if my friend was actually going through something at that time and I did nothing about that, what does that make me? And especially attacking you like that afterwards, what does that make me? Right? So I hope, you both, I mean, I know you have learned from it in terms of how you conduct yourself and how you want, and the things that for you is important to convey. Yeah, and you're trying, and I see it. Like, we've been friends for a very while, for a very long time. So I've seen your growth.
10 years old.
Oh my god, imagine. All right, so we have 2 minutes left.
Oh my god. Okay.
Right?
Yeah. It's not his forcing it. Zoom is going to close off.
But you know what? Actually, give me 1 second. I think I have a way to bypass this. You know what? Guys, give us... You know what? This is kind of like a commercial break. All right. Here... We'll be right back after these messages. Give us 1 second.
Put yourself singing in this part, Steven.
Oh, imagine. And we're back. Oh my goodness. Weren't those ads amazing? there are no ads. There are no commercials because I'm a small podcast. It's okay. We'll pretend though. We'll pretend. All right. I couldn't leave it at that because leaving it was such a sad place to leave it at. It was like, because you were like, let's talk about the bad first and then the good. And it was like, yeah, actually, there were no good. But don't worry. This is honestly, I'm just going to connect the two. So it's almost as if nothing even happened. But
Magic.
Right, exactly. Movie magic, Hollywood. So with that being said, now we know how it was resolved, quote unquote, right? And the resolution was the dissolution of the friendship, which is, always so sad. But it's actually so common when it comes to communication.
I am Greek. We love our tragedies.
I was actually going to say, so before we get into the topic of like the good side of it, right? Because you are Greek, and this is a question that I like asking people, obviously from different countries, right? When it comes to communication, do you find that there might be barriers when it comes to talking to other people from other countries?
From other countries.
Like, let's say you and I, right? Like when we communicate, or like you and somebody else from the server, when you guys communicate, because there are different customs, I guess, right? Like cultural, kind of, what's the term here? Influences in terms of how we communicate and and how we convey our messages.
I understand what you mean, and it doesn't have to be a cultural difference. It can also be, the age difference sometimes, because you have like a 10-year age gap, right?
Yes,
gap,
yes, right? Yeah.
And
thanks.
It was not a read. It was an
fucking
example.
Thanks. Yeah. Anyway.
It was not an example. I said what a good host you are. I am allowed to say one. It wasn't even a mean thing.
Two very, very honest.
3,
honestly,
but thank you for counting.
Oh God.
But yeah, I understand what you mean. I'm going to be honest. I haven't really noticed it.
I love that.
Yeah, I mean, there are obviously things that I might not understand, right? When it comes, for example, I don't know, school-wise maybe, and memories that people have from the school, because American schools are very different, for example, from Greek schools.
Right.
There are different cultures and different customs that arise from this thing.
Yeah.
I don't know from my experience, as long as you have an open mind and you are not ready to judge others based on your personal experiences, because the reason I said we have a 10-year difference is because we are very good friends. I like to consider you one of my very good friends.
Same.
And you are Filipino Canadian. You live in Toronto. I'm not gonna dox you anymore.
I was gonna say, well, thank you so much. Now you guys know where to find me if you.
His address is. His ID number is.
Don't make me get the fucking envelope with your address, okay? It's right there, waving at me, and I will show this.
If you want to steal his identity, he has a terrible credit score. You don't want to.
Stop!
You know what? I just had a very sad tale. I need to bring the spirits up. But yeah, I mean, I think we're a very good example of how people who are just, have an open mind. And you're also, because you talked about me a lot, but you're also an individual who has a very open mind because of his personal experiences. He has decided that he wants to be a little more forgiving when it comes to people and how they communicate themselves. Give them, essentially giving them the benefit of the doubt. And I think that has really helped with our friendship and how we communicate with each other. Because I will say I was not as tolerant before I met you. I'm going to say now, almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I will say that I learned a lot from you and how you you treat people, how you give them once
I
again the
hope it's
benefit of
good.
the doubt. No, once again, it's like, it's the benefit of the doubt. I try to give
Right.
that to people. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know if with the previous example, if I would have been as understanding.
Oh no,
You know
yeah,
what
I
I
get
mean?
it.
Because we
Oh,
share some experience, and it's one of those things that it doesn't necessarily have to do with age, but you have certain experiences, and communicating with someone, not communicating with someone, talking to someone about your experiences and what you have been through, and you know what has those certain experiences have taught you can be very helpful to others, honestly. And I guess that's why you're making this podcast as well.
yeah, but you know what though? Like I do have to say, right? Like two things. So number one, like I brought that up because I actually found it very interesting when like there are still certain individuals that kind of have this mentality of it's hard to talk to somebody from a different country or like with different cultures because that's just like how they're raised and stuff like that. And I do feel like if there's one thing that we can thank the pandemic, it's having everyone learn how to access online resources and be able to connect to each other online from people from different parts of the world. I really feel like it opened up everyone's communications. I really feel like it served almost as like the like religious shout outs here, but like the Tower of Babel kind of deal, right? In which we were all there and everyone, different languages, yes, but we all still understood each other, right? So I do feel like that is like a huge plus in that, and I agree. So like I asked it not because I want you to share experiences of like when was there a breakdown, but rather to confirm the fact that actually hold the fuck on, like it actually doesn't matter where you are, like you're able to understand people from different parts of the world, and
Yeah,
that's
as
not
long as there are
necessarily
gonna be things that you might not understand, right? Like I said, I'm from Greece.
right, but
There are
it's
people from America. There are people from Canada.
yes.
You might not understand certain situations. Ask.
Yeah, it's having the open mind, like what you said, and that I thought that was actually a beautiful answer, and I'm really glad. And the second thing I wanted to say was, yes, there is a decade, worth of a gap between us, but
And you can't even tell because he looks wonderful.
I'm fucking dead. Thank you. You know what? Drink 3 Trenta cups of water a day, y'all. It really helps. No, but in all seriousness, like the things that you've learned from me, there are things I've learned from you, right? And
Oh
like
no.
specifically for me, it is knowing when to put my foot down. I think that is the biggest thing that I have learned, like in terms of our friendship and the things that when I talk to you about certain things, you have conveyed it in a way that's still very human. It's still very forgiving, but the recurring theme of our conversations has been I need to start learning when to say no, when to stop taking shit from people, and not in that way, right? Like you really have taught me how to really put up my boundaries because I almost had none, And at first I was very like, oh, it's okay. Oh, it's okay. But when it started eating me alive, it was when I started realizing, okay, hold on. Like, Sheep and I have talked about this like 4 different times now with 4 different people that's been involved. And it's always been the same thing. And the common denominator was me. The common denominator was how I wasn't able to protect myself from certain things. So, like I do have to say, like, in some ways, sure, the things that you went through, putting up a wall and stuff like that, it was kind of bad, yes. And you've learned to kind of, like build windows in those walls, which is great. The need to necessarily break it down, right? But I do want to say thank you, and I really appreciate that kind of insight that you've brought into my life, because if it wasn't for that, like I would still let people walk all over me.
I'm
And
very
it's not
glad.
like they're doing it on purpose. I think that's the biggest thing between us. Like we understood they were not doing it on purpose. It's just that conveniently enough, I was laying on the ground acting like a carpet for everybody. That was me. That was on me. So I do say, I don't want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for that. See? Things I learned from you. All right. Right, right. And this is why
But
he's on the show, yeah.
I'm glad that you say it because setting up boundaries is a different form of communication, essentially.
Yes,
Being able
exactly.
to uh, vocalize as I'm very glad that you're here. I am very glad that we had those interactions, but I would like to set up those boundaries with myself
Right.
to feel safer, to feel better for myself. Because, sometimes a lot of people, because they want to avoid awkwardness probably
Yeah.
or uncomfortable situations, you let things happen that you later on, you're like, I should have said something at the time.
Right. Exactly. No, I totally get it. But yes. Let's move on to the very. No, I'm just scared we're gonna run out of time again. I'm gonna have to do my ad break, quote unquote. But no, I mean
Yeah,
honestly,
sure.
like this is great. This is I love being able to bring people here and having a lot to say. Don't get me wrong, right? Like I love that you have a lot to say. I benefit from it. The audience benefits from it, right? This is the whole point of the podcast, right? Like to be able to really say how you feel about things because at the very heart of each and every single conversation, and you will notice, right? Like I sometimes I've talked about the same topics 4 times, but different people have talked about it, and everyone brings a different kind of nuance and tone towards that topic, right? So this being the first time talking about this, I actually love it because the next time I talk about communication with somebody else, I want to see how like how different it is and
How
how they
they
yeah, am I gonna sit here and agree or am I gonna sit here and be mortified that like, oh my god, like I don't think I can air this, like,
Next topic, racism.
oh my god, like that I'm scared to take that on that because that is a huge one, right? Like where there's a lot I don't want to find out that somebody that I care about actually has like a poor understanding of what racism is. And I'm sitting here kind of like,
I'm not gonna edit this,
okay.
am I? This is a 30 minutes of my
Yeah.
life gone.
Yeah, so I'm gonna anyway, so the good
The
part,
good
okay.
part, yeah,
The
thank
good
you. To get
okay.
back to the actual conversation, yeah.
Yes.
Um, the good part actually happened very recently. I was hanging out online with a group of friends. We were playing an online game. I don't think if people have heard it, it's called League of Legends. Who knows that game? And on the heat of the moment, jokingly, someone said, to another person of the group, 1v1 me, bro. And it started this whole thing when they go into, in a custom room to battle each other. And at the moment, this is gonna make me sound very childish. And it totally breaks down the whole progress we have talked about. But I did feel kind of annoyed at the moment because I'm like, here we are, everyone is a group, and you're leaving to play with a single person.
Right.
So my trauma got the better of me at this
Mhm.
situation because, once again, I'm not gonna say that what they did was polite, but as we said before, thinking and feeling. Uh, I can also tell with certainty that the reason I reacted the way I reacted and why I got annoyed to the level that I did is
Right.
because of past trauma, personal
Mhm.
issues of feeling neglected and feeling left out from things. And I think that's where feeling plays a vital point when it comes to thinking, because you're
Right.
able to connect certain thoughts with certain feelings and understand better certain situations.
Yes.
And I was glad I was able to decipher that, a big reason for the way that I felt annoyed at the moment because of, projecting my issues on this situation. And, to sum up, I felt kind of annoyed with that person. And I, like I said, I suck at communication at certain times. I'm feeling some sort of way, and my overthinking takes the better of me. And I need to step away from whatever the situation might be to catch my breath and, help my mind calm down a little bit because it
Right.
gets very noisy in there. And apparently I missed some messages that they sent me, and they interpret it as a situation of me ignoring them
Right.
while I was not in front of my computer. And and I once again didn't have the energy, or I wasn't in the mood to properly communicate to them. So I left a very canty response.
Ooh,
It
I
wasn't
love
rude. It
it.
wasn't rude, but it's not proper communication. I was like, it's fine. You'll have to 1v1 them. It's fine. Whatever. And that was
Well, I mean,
that
his
was it.
love of cunty music came out.
I hate it. Like I said, Greeks, we love our tragedies.
Oh no.
Um, and it took me a week or so, a little more maybe than that, to in this whole in this during this time, getting from feeling annoyed to feeling like shit
Right.
to starting to reconsider the situation, trying to approach it from a different angle, talking to myself about it because actually communicating with yourself as well is a
Right.
thing, and talking with other people about
Right.
it. I
Very
don't know if you know them.
important. I mean, hey,
Um,
shout out to
and shout out to someone
shout out to someone.
who's hosting a podcast. And, you know, uh, a lot of thinking and considering how I was feeling and trying to put down certain thoughts and how I wanted to phrase them until I eventually messaged them, to make a long story short, to message them and actually explain how I was feeling and why I wasn't able to respond to their messages, and explaining why I got annoyed and how I was irked by their reaction to the whole situation and how it made me feel some kind of way.
Yeah, yeah,
And making it very clear that, for example, I was expecting a simple message like, "Hey, are you okay?"
yeah.
It's making it very clear that this is how I would approach the situation. I didn't say that
Right,
they had to do it,
right.
but I'm just trying to explain how I felt and
No,
what reaction I was
totally valid.
expecting and why it made me feel annoyed. So, I taking the time to properly phrase it so it doesn't feel to me and to them that I was not attacking them and telling them that they did something wrong.
Yeah,
Because communication is a two-way street.
exactly.
So you cannot put the blame on one person. And, after I sent this giant message, um, they answered not too long after, and they actually told me that they didn't know that there was an issue.
Right.
I think that's a thing that speaks volumes when you
Yes.
don't properly communicate the situation. You just sit there letting your thoughts and your overthinking get the better of you. Let me be an example. They didn't know that it was an issue in their mind. It had been resolved, or it wasn't a serious situation. They didn't know that I was feeling like that, and they were
Right.
sorry if they didn't say anything that made me feel like that. Um, and I think obviously I did enjoy feeling like that, but whose fault was that?
No, of course, right? And that's when,
Exactly. I was very happy that I was able to communicate it. And I think the issue that people have with communication, or how sometimes it tends to be misinterpreted, that you have to communicate about anything, everything, about every little thing. But it's not necessary. But when there are situations like this, when there's something bugging you, and
yeah,
it can essentially lead to people drifting away. Obviously there's an issue and it needs to be resolved. But
exactly.
talking about that,
The way I see it is if there is a situation that you find yourself in, and that situation is something that allows you to start seeing another person in a different light, that is something that you need to talk about. That is something that you need to communicate. If it's kind of like little quirks and things that are just kind of like, oh, like just you just kind of get annoyed by or whatever, then you kind of start to realize, okay, hold on, that's a me situation, that's a me problem. That's not about them. This is about me. But that's how I actually gauge when to talk to another person. Is if it's something that for me, I will start seeing them differently because there are things I don't understand, then it's something that I would definitely actively be like, okay, hold on, I would like to have a conversation because this is how I feel about this. So I love that you were able to do that. I love that you were able to say something because it's exactly what you said, right? For them, it wasn't even an issue. And I think what I love the most about this situation is how you reacted to them saying that. Because Lord knows the old Steven, if somebody had told me that there was no issue after I said there was a fucking issue, I would have been like, are you fucking stupid? I would have been like, hello? I would have been like, do you live in a twilight zone? So, kudos to you because that's when you've demonstrated that you were able to detach the connection between your emotions and your mind when you realize that, oh, wait, so how I'm feeling right now actually does not apply to what had happened. And it wasn't a personal attack, it was a miscommunication, misunderstanding, or, at the very root of it, a lack of communication from you.
hmm
I love
uh,
that.
it's one thing though, I wouldn't say detached necessarily, but
Okay.
um, maybe detached when it comes to context.
Okay.
But I think a better word might be better interpreting or reinterpreting
I love
the
that. Yeah,
situation.
I dig that. I think for me, I say detach because I personally need to do those things sometimes because when everything is fueled by how I feel, um, it's always an insecurity thing. So for me to kind of pull that plug and to just completely rationalize things, that's when I start to be like, this is not about any emotions that I have. This is about the situation at hand. And then I plug back in and understand what had just transpired. See, so again, right, differences. This is why I love talking about these things because there's different ways in which how we deal with communication. And the important thing is that we are dealing with it. Is that we are communicating. We're not just saying, like, nah, fuck that shit. I don't want to deal with this shit. This is stupid. Which a lot of people do. You gotta admit.
Well, yeah,
Podcasters,
yeah.
listeners, viewers, I know you guys are like that sometimes. It's okay. Admit it. But
We are
for the
like that
sake,
sometimes.
right? We were. I mean, sometimes, we kind of get caught into the whole thing. It's
It is.
fine.
But it's it's useful to communicate. I don't know what more to say. Because at the end of the
Yes.
day, when it comes to the relationship itself, I think no matter what the relationship is, either it's a romantic relationship or a friendship or whatever, um, it it helps it grow because if you proceed in that relationship, either holding grudges or, getting so annoyed at this person that you blow out on them and then,
Yes.
going away, being able to talk about things, you resolve further issues from transpiring. It makes the relationship
Exactly.
better, you communicate better, and so you feel like you know the other person a little better. And you know
I love
yourself a
that.
little better, and you're actually happy for yourself for once for being able to properly communicate with someone
Right.
you're
There
feeling.
it is. See? It creates endorphins, everybody. So please communicate with everybody. But we are running out of time again. So I just want to wrap this up. I want to say thank you so much for being a guest on here. I am 176% sure that people have learned something new, that people have, kind of awoken to a new world in their psyche and their minds, all thanks to you and your experiences. So kudos to Vaz. Before we go, is there anything you would like to say to everybody out there? Any shout outs? Any
I love it. Communication, it's not easy, but it has to be done one way or another. You're gonna be forced
Oh.
into it, or else things are gonna be very dark. Talking from personal
Oh.
experiences. Uh, Live your life.
Live your life, he
And
says. All
don't be
right.
mad at someone who chooses to use 176, a very, very specific weird number, and not
You
going for it
know?
for a very nice round number like 175 or 180. Proper.
You know? Because chaos is everybody's best friend. All right? So I'm putting it in there so that nobody else has to be part of it. Okay? God. Anyway, this has been great. This is Vaz, everybody, or Sheep. Is there anywhere we can find you at all, or do you not want to be found? He is an amazing artist. Can I just say that? Now, do you have your art account that we can plug here? So, what is it called? Is it on Instagram?
It's on Instagram. It's called at Dark Lord of Sheep. Uh, all one word.
Art
He
Dark
says
Lord
I'm an
of
amazing
Sheep.
artist. I haven't drawn in a year now.
But you know what? And they're still really great. But this has been Breaking Down the Breakdown. Thank you so much again, Sheep / Vaz / Art Dark Lord of Sheep on Instagram, for sharing your insight, for sharing your beautiful experience with life and communication and the breakdown and the whole shebang of being able to put it together. This is Steven Diego. I will see you guys soon. Always remember to be compassionate. You don't know what other people are going through. So if you want to feel like you're going to pop somebody, please don't. Please don't. Take a step back, okay? Read the situation and ask yourself, is it me? Am I the fucking drama? All right. Thank you so much. I will see y'all later. Goodbye.